You ever have a project that seems so simple but ends up exploding in complexity, sending you down a rabbit hole and taking way longer than expected? Well, that's the story of this drawing. Let's rewind. So a few weeks ago I had this idea, to draw these Pokemon locked in an epic battle, only I couldn't figure out the composition, so I decided to look for inspiration. And I found it in the first issue of Pokemon. This is Mew and Charmander fighting, and I love it so much that I stole it. And this is the result, which I'm super happy with. But as I was reading it, I thought, why is this manga so different from the anime? You see, I was under the impression that, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon was a manga, then an anime, then a general franchise. But I was wrong. And to answer the question of why they're all so different, I need to explain some of the history of Pokemon. This is Satoshi Tajiri, and he came up with Pokemon in 1990 and pitched it to Nintendo, who weren't keen, but said yes anyway. Fast forward to 1996, and Pokemon's finally about to come out. The Nintendo hires a kids magazine, owned by Shogakukan Productions, to publish a manga based on the game, as a form of advertising. It's called Pokemon Pocket Monsters, and it's weird as. All the Pokemon could speak, the art looks like Dragon Ball, and issue 1 is all about Clefairy of all things, with Pikachu as a side character. This weird little manga comes out the day after the initial release of the Pokemon game in February 1996. And Pokemon goes off. It goes off like Mr. Brightside in a room full of white guys. So Shogakukan, seeing they've got a good thing on their hands, double down and publish a second, completely different manga based on the game in 1997. This is Pokemon Adventures. It's the manga that I thought looked so cool, and it's to this day the only continuously running Pokemon manga in existence. But they were all of them deceived. For another piece of media was created. Deep in the heart of Shogakukan Productions, the Pokemon anime was being forged. And in April 1997, the first episode would be released in Japan. Then just a year later, the Pokemon movie would come out, less than 2 years after the initial release of the game. And later that year, Pokemon would be released to the rest of the world in English. This is the reason why all the storylines and art styles were so different. They were all created independently of each other at the same time. It all moved so fast, there was no time to sync up, and the target demographic was children. It didn't really matter because they wouldn't notice, would they? Pokemon was conceived of as a franchise, and maybe that's one of the reasons it survived as long as it has. There's no pesky artists trying to stifle the franchise with ideals or whatever.